to the bottom. That means the cables are underneath. And you also see the protection relay installed there. If we now look a bit more in detail into such a feeder,
welcome to our webinar on future-proof
it looks like this.
power distribution
You see
for battery
on the left-hand
manufacturing.
side again
During
the
this
bus
session,
bar,
you'll gain insights into
and
how
then
to
I
effectively protect your
illustrated
assets,
one feeder a
minimize
bit more in
downtime,
detail.
and leverage smart solutions for system
You see
analysis and
here the
maintenance
circuit breaker.
using the
That means
Silvacon
that
S8
is the
Plus
device
switchboard.
which is really
My
able
name
to
is Ulrich
interrupt the
Hilber, and
short
it's a pleasure
circuit
to serve
current
as your guide
in
throughout
case
this
the
webinar.
line
I'm the
has a
vertical
short
manager
circuit.
responsible for the battery manufacturing industry.
Then
And
we
yes, since
see
we receive all
current
questions rather
transformers
often,
and voltage
we will record
transformers
the
here.
webinar and make the
Why do
recording
we
and the
need
slides
that?
available to all of you.
The
Please
protection
submit your
relay has
questions
to
for our
measure
speakers, Martin
currents and
Andreas,
voltages
using
on the
Q&A
line
feature on the
to
upper right
decide is
corner
there a
of this
short circuit
platform.
or not.
They will respond after
But
their
as
presentation.
the line may have
Any unanswered
20
questions will be
kV,
addressed via email after the
132
webinar.
kV,
And
400
just in
kV
case
or
you are in full
whatever,
screen mode,
we
press
cannot
escape to
connect
see
the line
Q&A field
directly
for questions
to the
and the chat
protection
box
relay.
for short
We
comments.
connect it via the
Before
so-called
diving into
instrument
specifics,
transformers.
let's
That
address the
means
primary power supply
the
challenges and
voltage
how they
is
relate to the key
transformed
phases
down
of
to
the
a
battery
reasonable
manufacturing
level,
process.
and also the
Material
big
preparation,
current which
cell
may
assembly,
flow. We may
formation and
have
aging, and final
10,
assembly and
20
testing.
kiloamps flowing
First, there
in
is a
case of a
critical
short
need for
circuit.
uninterrupted power.
Also, that is
Battery manufacturing
transformed down
facilities
to a
require a
level
reliable and
which the
constant power
protection
supply
relay
to ensure non-stop
can
production.
use.
The absence of power halts manufacturing, leading
We
to
typically
significant
also
revenue
use a
loss.
battery in a
Hence, securing a
substation.
stable
It sounds
power
a bit
supply
strange
is
to have a
paramount in this
battery in a
industry.
substation which is full of
Improving
power.
energy efficiency
But
remains a
that
perpetual
battery
challenge
is
given the
used
energy-intensive
to
nature of battery production.
give a reliable
data and
supply
analytics
both
allow
for the
our
circuit
customers
breaker,
to
for the
optimize
whole
energy
control
systems
system,
and process in
also
both
for the
buildings and
protection
production
relay.
facilities, enhancing
And what is
sustainability
also
and efficiency.
indicated here
Moreover,
is the
safeguarding
wiring.
power infrastructure is essential to ensure safe
Of
production
course,
processes.
wiring looks a little
This
bit
precaution
trivial.
not only protects the workforce,
In
on-site
this sketch,
machinery
yes,
from
it's
potential
trivial,
critical
but if you
incidents,
think
but
about
also guarantees a secure
a
and
big
continuous operational
substation,
environment.
open-air
As
substation,
digitalization
then
advances and
we have
IoT
the
becomes
circuit
integrated
breaker,
into
the
process
VTs
management
and
systems
CTs
and
outside
energy
in the
solutions,
field.
cybersecurity
You
and
always have to
ensuring steady
multiply what you
production.
see here by 3.
In battery
because we have the
manufacturing,
3
from the initial
phases,
mixing and coating
and the
of
protection
materials,
relays are
precise
somewhere in a
environmental
relay
controls
house.
and reliable
And now
power
you
are
can
vital to
imagine
ensuring consistency
we have a
and
lot of
integrity
wires, and
through
these
cell
wires
assembly,
can
which
be
demands
100
meticulous
meters
energy
long or
management
longer.
and the utilization of data
So
analytics
sometimes
to optimize
also
resources and
things
enhance
happen with
sustainability.
wiring, so
To the
that
formation
we
aging process that
sometimes
requires
also
secure
have to
power
pay attention to
infrastructure.
that. We
and
can
digital
compare
solutions
this
for closely
arrangement
monitoring
a
energy
little
intensive
bit
operations,
with what you know
safeguarding
from
both
your
equipment
home.
and
This is
operators,
an
and finally to the
MCB you have
extensive
at home,
testing
and this one
and
does
assembly of battery
protection
packs.
for your low
Where
voltage
maintaining
system at
cybersecurity
home.
in digitalized systems is
And
critical
it's
to
worth
protect
looking at the
sensitive information and
differences.
ensure a
What
seamless,
does this one
uninterrupted
do?
production rhythm.
What does our protection
In today's
relay
webinar, we'll address power
do
infrastructure
in a
safety and
substation?
reliability.
Their job is
Low voltage
pretty much
switchboards are
similar,
subject to
but on the
extensive
other hand,
demand
there are
and
differences.
external influences.
This
Silvacon
device
S8
here
Plus provides the
directly
foundation
measures
for a
the
secure
current. In
and
this case,
efficient
it has
power
only
supply
current. That
through
means the
smart
current
power
flows
distribution and
directly
robust
through this
arc fault
device.
protection and prevention,
It makes the
ensuring
decision.
maximum safety for
If it says,
individuals
okay, there is a
and
short
reliable
circuit, I
production
will trip.
outcomes.
It also
Our goal is to
interrupts the
safeguard
current.
personnel and assets by
What our
reducing
protection
downtime
does
and
is
expenses
only
from
half of that.
outages.
It
Let's
cannot
take a
measure
quick
the
look
current
at today's
directly.
agenda.
It gets the
We will
current and
start with an
voltage
introduction to
measurement through
Silvacon S8
current and
Plus,
voltage
followed
transformers.
by a detailed look
But
at
the
its safe
important
design
thing,
and
it
reliable
cannot
core.
interrupt the
Next, we
current
will explore the
itself.
active arc fault
It can
protection
only give
features and how they
a
help in
trip
minimizing
command
downtime.
to a circuit breaker.
We'll also dive into how the Symrise control
That
system
means
can lead you into the digital future
Our protection
with
relay
smart
roughly
solutions for
does
improved management
half
and
the job
maintenance.
of such an
Finally,
MCB,
we'll wrap up
but
with
of
a Q&A
course
session to
on a
answer
much
any
more
questions you may
in a
have.
much more
Let's
sophisticated
get started
way.
on this
What
journey
you
toward
also
enhanced
sometimes
electrical
find
safety.
is this
Martin and Andreas, the stage is
arrangement,
yours.
which is unfortunately a little bit more complicated. That is
When
a
it comes to low
so-called
voltage
breaker
power
and a half
distribution,
substation.
safety and reliability
It
are
sounds a
key.
bit strange. Where do we
Outages
have
and
half a
shutdowns
circuit
are to be
breaker somewhere?
avoided in the first
What is the
place.
structure there?
Requirements for
On
the
both
properties and
sides, you
design of
see
switchgear are defined
the
by
bus
international
bar,
standards. The
and
Silvacon S8 Plus
to the
meets
top
the
we have
requirements
two
for design
outgoing
verification
feeders.
according to IEC
And in this arrangement, we
61439-2
again have
for power
one
switchgear
protection
and
relay
control
per
gear
feeder.
assemblies. That's how
the
switchboards
left
are called
protection
in
relay
that
for the
standard.
left-hand feeder, the right
It has
protection
also been
relay for
tested
the
under
right-hand
arcing
feeders.
conditions in
But we
accordance
have
with
in
the
total
IEC Technical
1,
Report
2,
61641.
circuit breakers.
Additionally, it has been
That means
certified
for
the
two
use
feeders
on
we have
ships
3 circuit
and offshore
breakers
platforms
that ends up in
according
an
to
average
DNV
1.5
GL
circuit breaker per feeder.
and an option for
That
seismic
means
requirements.
if we look at the left-hand relay, this is responsible for the
From a
left-hand
technical
feeder.
standpoint, our
If this
system
relay
stands out
detects a short
primarily for its
circuit
flexible design,
on the left feeder,
which allows it to be
it has to
tailored
trip
specifically
2
to your
circuit
needs.
breakers. The left-hand
Thanks to
circuit
its
breaker
modular system principle,
and the center circuit
the
breaker.
Civicon SA Plus can
The
be
same
adapted
applies to the
throughout
right one if
its
that
entire
detects
lifespan.
a short circuit. On the
The
right-hand
withdrawable
feeder,
design
it has to trip
allows very
the center
space-saving
circuit
switchboards,
breaker
leading to much more than
and
just a
the right
compact
circuit
design.
breaker.
It also
You
ensures
also
a
see
maximum level
voltage
of supply
transformers and
reliability.
current transformers here.
And
In
we
this
should
case,
also
the
mention
situation
that
with the
this
voltage
adds to
transformers
the
is pretty
sustainability
easy. So we
of
have
the
a
overall
voltage
power
transformer on
distribution.
the feeder. That means the left-hand relay
what about
measures the
powering
voltage on
large
the left
consumers
feeder.
with
The same
specific
applies to the
requirements?
right one. The current measurement
In
is a
addition to
bit
the
more
motor
tricky in
management
this
system
case.
of the Simacon
As you
family,
see here,
suitable
the
for
current
motor feeders,
transformer is
we
not
can
in the
also supply
feeder.
large consumers
The current
using
transformer
soft
is
starters
here,
or variable
or
frequency
several
drives.
current transformers are
With the
here in
Civicon
this
SA
so-called
Plus, consumers
diameter.
can be powered
Diameter
up
is
to
this horizontal
250
connection
kilowatts
between the
or
two
630
bus bars.
amps using
And in
MCC
order to
withdrawable
measure
technology.
the current in the feeder,
Moreover,
for instance, in
feeders
the left-hand
with special
feeder,
requirements
the
such
protection
as soft
relay has to
starters or
sum
variable
up
frequency drives,
two
as just
current
mentioned, can
measurements
also be integrated.
in the diameter, and just by summing up the currents,
For feeders to
can
sub-distributions
measure the current in the
or
feeder.
particularly
but
large
the rest
consumers,
behind
circuit
that,
breaker
the protection
design is
principle,
used.
the way to
For higher
identify
ratings up to
short circuits is the
6,300
same
amps, we
as
use
in the
our
previous
3WA
drawing.
air circuit
This
breaker,
is called
which
breaker
are
and a half
deployed in a
substation.
separate
And
circuit
the
breaker
decision
section with
whether we
one
build
or up to 3 breakers.
Single line or double
Another
bus bar
option is the
substations
molded case
or
circuit
such a
breaker,
substation
MCCB
that comes from the
3VA,
primary
which
system,
can also
from
be
the high
used in
voltage
the withdrawal
system.
unit
The
up
protection
to
people have to
630
adapt to
amps,
that.
or separate sections up to 1,000 amps.
Let's also have a short look
Now,
at
let's
the
have a look at the
instrument
general
transformers,
specifications
just to show a
of the
few
Civicon
examples.
SA
On the left-hand side, you see
The
a
Civicon SA
voltage
Plus system has been
transformer
designed and developed according
and
to
a
the
current
highest
transformer
standards.
for medium
It meets the
voltage.
requirements of
You
the
see
IEC
here the connection points
61439-2,
for the voltage,
ensuring
and
maximum
also for
safety
the
for
current.
both
That
personnel
means the current
and
flows
assembly.
through the current
This enables
transformer
high system
this way.
availability.
The
The
primary
main bus
current
bar
in the
can
line,
carry up
the
to
line is
7,010
connected to
amps,
this one,
depending on its
and our
installation
protection
position.
relay is
We
then
distinguish
connected
between
here
rear
in the
and top
bottom
mounting positions.
at these
And for the
terminals,
rear position,
where
it
we
can
see
further be
the
differentiated
transformed
into
voltage
upper rear
and
lower
also
rear
the
position.
transformed current.
The Civicon SA Plus is
On
designed
the
for
right-hand side,
voltages
we see
up
the
to
same story
690
for the
volts
higher
typically.
voltage levels. In this case,
Customer connections
400
can be made either
kilovolt.
from the front or from
In
the
this
rear.
case, you don't need
The
more
system is
power
available
in the
in two
current
heights
transformer and the voltage
with,
transformer.
the
These things
option
are
to
just
add an
bigger
additional plinth
because we
in
need
both cases.
more insulation.
With our
Because we have to
Civicon
measure
8PS
voltage
busbar trunking
on a
systems,
400
we
kV
also offer
level
an easy way of connecting
and
our
need
ACD
insulation
sections
for 400
to
kV.
transformers,
You see a current
other
transformer for
switchboards,
400
or
kV.
tap-off units
The current
as an
flow is
alternative
here
to using cable
in the
connections.
top of this thing.
This
You
type of
also see a
connection
voltage
is also
transformer
design verified.
where the voltage is connected
Our uniform
and our
operating
protection
concept
relay
helps
is connected
the
somewhere
operator to
down
prevent
there. Just on the right-hand
operational
side,
errors. You will see
you
how
see
this
a
works in the
combined
following video.
instrument transformer. It is a combination
frequently
of a
changing
current
requirements,
transformer
this
and a
design
voltage
offers the
transformer
necessary
in one
flexibility,
device. Because
as well as
normally we
easy
need
and
both
safe handling.
measurements,
The
current
cable
and
connection
voltage.
compartment
And
can be
what you
positioned
also see
laterally
here is
or at the
again
rear.
the 3 phases. That means if we talk about one voltage
Withdrawable
transformer,
unit widths
we
of
normally talk
150
about
millimeters,
3 devices, one
300
per phase.
millimeters,
Now let's talk a little bit about the requirements
600
to
millimeters
protection, and
facilitate
there we
flexible
often
and
mention
modular
the
assembly
3
according to
S.
customer requirements.
That means speed, safety,
The units
and
are available
selectivity.
as full-size
So
or
let's look at
small-size
this a
units
little bit
with
more.
quarter or
What does
half-size.
speed mean?
Our
Imagine
withdrawable
speed
units
is
are
pretty
designed in such a way
important.
that they can be
Remember
operated
short
safely
circuit,
at all times and therefore offer maximum
lot of current flowing,
protection.
risk of damage
Additionally,
of
mechanical
components.
interlocks
That means we must
prevent
be
careless
fast
or accidental
to
operating errors.
disconnect the
We
fault
refer to this
if
as
we
operating
detect
error
one.
safety.
And in protection,
If the
fast
withdrawable unit
means
is in the
something
operating
like
position,
a few
both the main
milliseconds
contacts and the control
up
contacts
to
are engaged.
100
In the
milliseconds, or in
disconnected position,
cases
neither
even
the main
more
contacts
when we
nor
have
the
to
control
do
contacts are
compromises.
connected. In the test position,
Getting enough
only the
speed
control
is,
contacts are engaged.
on one hand,
withdrawable units can be
a question
put into
of the
disconnect,
algorithms.
test,
That
and
means
operating
on the
position
manufacturer
with the door
side,
closed, meaning
developers
that
have
the
to
IP degree of protection
invest
always
brain
remains
into
maintained.
fast algorithms, especially
Thus,
for the high
it can be
voltage,
said that
extra
the
high voltage
withdrawable
levels.
unit technology
But
offers
speed is
high
also
safety,
influenced by the protection
flexibility,
concepts.
and optimal
And you will
operability.
see in the second part
In
of this
addition, it also
webinar
offers a high packing
that
density.
we
Each
sometimes have to
section
do
can be equipped with up
compromises
to 48
when building up the
small-sized
protection
withdrawable units
concepts,
or
which
18
will
full-size
lead
units.
to
And with a
delayed
degree of
tripping.
protection
That means we
of
have
up
to reduce speed
IP54, it can also be used
for
in
some
harsh
reasons.
environments.
The second point is
To
safety.
improve ratings,
Thing it's
also with
self-understanding.
high
It's
ambient temperatures of up
technology.
to 50
If our technology
Celsius, it is
doesn't
possible
work
to use
properly,
the optional
there is
forced
a risk
ventilation.
of damage
This helps to minimize
or injuring
derating
people
of not
or
only motor
instability.
starters in the
That
withdrawable
means we have
sections,
to
but
think
also of
about the
3WA
reliability
air
of the
circuit
whole
breakers
system.
in
And there will
circuit
be
breaker
a
sections
separate
with
chapter
very high
on that.
ratings.
And
which
the
in
last
turn
issue, which
allows
also has
to
to be
decrease
mentioned,
feeder
is the
sizes
selectivity.
and to be more
What does
compact even
selectivity
under
mean?
unfavorable
Selectivity
ambient
means
conditions.
if you have a short circuit
Temperature
somewhere
sensors
in the
are used to
network,
monitor the operating
there is
conditions
short
here.
circuit coming
The fans
through
must be
different
controlled,
lines,
so only
cables,
running
and
at a
transformers.
level that is
That
necessary
means
at the current
several
conditions.
devices in the
This
system will
minimizes
see
the
there
derating
is something
to
wrong.
reduce the footprint
But only
of the switchboard
the protection
and protect
device of the
sensitive
faulty
electronic
line
devices
or
for the
cable
purpose
has to
of a
trip.
long service life.
The other ones see the fault,
Attention
but
is
they
paid
should
not
not
only
trip.
to modularity
Because we don't
and
want to
energy
trip
efficiency,
5 lines
but
if there's a
also
short circuit
to
on one line.
durability,
And this thing is
which is
called
one factor of
selectivity,
sustainability.
that only the faulty component is disconnected
With
from the rest.
Silicon S8,
And that
we
is a
support
very
you
important
in
issue,
reaching your
and we will
sustainability
have
goals with various
several
measures. From
chapters
the ban of
dealing
hazardous
what can we
substances,
do to
optimized
get
designs like the
selectivity.
double front arrangements, to the
That is
use
the end of this
sustainable materials.
basic chapter of
These
this
measures
introduction.
will help you in
And
reducing
in the
the
next
footprint
chapter,
of your
we will
power
see
distribution.
what aspects do we have to consider
Transparency
if we
is
want
provided
to
by the
put together
Environmental
a protection
Product
scheme.
Declaration.
Thank you.
We also offer a small tool that will show you how different design decisions will influence the overall CO2 footprint of the low voltage power distribution system. Typically, the most resources are used during operation of the switchboard. Production or manufacturing only makes up a small portion compared to the entire lifespan. So these
So
design
what
decisions
aspects do we
will
have to
a
consider if we
significant
want to
impact.
define a protection scheme?
The
So you
EcoGuide
already
will be
realize
available
there's a
soon on
strong
our
relation
website.
between protection
included
and
the
the
link
network.
already
That
in the
means we
info
have
box.
to look a little bit into the network. And
our
the
next
first
step,
question
we will
is, of
cover how
course,
the Civicon S8
what
Plus
type
ensures
of component do we
maximum
want to protect?
even under critical conditions.
This picture just shows a mixture of all the different
Safety
components which
without
may be
compromise.
available in the
That's
network.
our guiding
Of
principle.
course, the
in the
majorities
development and
are
design
lines
of our
and
switchboard
cables,
system.
transformers.
Because
What you
in
also
terms of
see
safety,
here
we know
is
there can be
generators,
no
motors,
compromises, only
and
clear
other
standards.
special things. Bus
Our
bars is
low-voltage
also
switchboard
important.
systems
The
are
focus
developed,
here in this
manufactured,
introduction
and
will
tested in
mainly
accordance
be
with
on
IEC
network
61439-2
components. That means
for low-voltage
transformers,
switchgear
bus
and control
bars,
gear
cables,
assemblies.
and lines.
For us,
the focus will not
quality
be
is not a
generator
luxury.
protection and motor
It's essential
protection
for the economical
because
operation
there
of your switchboard system.
a lot of
It
different
also
things
stands
have to
for
be
high
considered.
reliability for your production.
So one thing
or
is the type
infrastructure.
of component. The next thing we have to
Even
look
though
at
arcing force rarely
is
occur
the
in
voltage level.
design-verified low-voltage switchboards, their effects are nevertheless
This
serious.
starts from
They can
the
lead to serious
extra high
injury of
voltage level,
personnel
from the
or system
transmission
damage and
network
cause
level,
high
and
downtime
it depends on the
Martin, can
country,
you tell
on
us
the
more
area
about
of
this?
the world where we are, which voltage level we find
For
there.
instance, An
It
arc
can be
fault
something
triggered
between
by
220,
foreign
400
objects,
kilovolt,
contamination,
750
animals, or
kilovolt,
improper handling.
or trials are
releases
already done
high
with
amounts
even
of energy
higher
in a very
voltages.
short time.
The voltage level which is
generating
used
extreme heat
depends
and a
on
pressure
the
wave.
size of the
To minimize
country, the
these risks,
distances,
Civicon SA+
and the amount
offers
of
a
energy you have to
comprehensive
transport.
modular arc fault protection
Always
concept.
remember, for the
The following
protection
two
relay,
principles apply
the
for
voltage level
protecting
doesn't
people
make
and equipment.
a big difference
First,
because the
prevent
voltage
arc
is
faults.
always transformed
Second,
transformed
minimize the
down
effects of
to that
any
level
remaining
which
risk
is seen by the
associated
relay.
with an arc
But
fault.
the concepts to do protection
are these
are
objectives
different
achieved
in high
in the
voltage level
Civicon IC+
compared
system?
with medium voltage.
In
Below
alignment
high
with our
voltage, you
first
have
principle, the
typically
focus is on
so-called
preventing an
subtransmission
arc fault
level.
from occurring
Also
in the
there,
first
the
place.
voltages are
As a
different in
secondary
different
measure, we
areas,
implement additional
110,
strategies to
132,
maximally
or
limit the
150
impact of
kilovolt.
any arc faults
And
that
below
do
that,
arise.
you have
This
a medium
includes,
voltage level,
among
which
other
does really
approaches,
the
the
distribution
testing and
of the
verification
energy
of switchgear combinations
into the cities,
according
the
to
villages.
IEC
These are often cable
61439-2
systems,
standard through
but
type
it can
testing.
also be
And then
overhead
appropriately
lines like
dimensioning
shown in these
them
pictures.
for the installation.
And the voltage levels we
taking
cover
these
here
steps, the
with the
Civicon
technology,
SA+
with this
system
technology
not only
starts
follows
typically
our
from
fundamental
6 kilovolt
safety principles,
up to,
but also
for instance,
ensures
30
the highest level
kilovolts in
of
the medium
protection
voltage level.
against arc faults,
That are the
thereby
voltage levels.
safeguarding both people and
We
equipment.
also have to look into the network
Proven
structures, and they
conventional
depend
protection
a bit on the
precautions
voltage level.
limit
What
the
you see
effects
here
of arc
is a
flashes.
mesh network.
This
That
includes
is what you
arc
typically
fault
find
proof
in
hinges
transmission
and locking
systems, in
systems,
subtransmission systems.
pressure relief,
That means we
roof
have a
flaps,
meshed system
insulation of
which
the
has
main bus
grown
bar,
somehow.
protective measures at front side
connects
ventilation
The
openings,
power station,
and
the
arcing barriers.
generation, and the loads. That
Uniform
means the
design and
transformers
operating
you see
concept
here
of the Civicon SA+
connect the power
allow
station
for clear
to the grid,
definition of
and they can
functional
also
areas.
be connections
Thus,
from this
also
transmission
avoiding
networks
errors due
to
to improper
sub-transmission
usage,
or to
which can
distribution.
lead to arc fault
Important
ignition.
thing here that is important for
Of
protection
course,
is
the
we have a
operational tools
meshed
used
structure.
in dimensioning
That means
and
if we have a
configuring the
short
switchgear
circuit
also help
somewhere on
ensure
one line,
optimal functionality
the
and
current comes
safety.
from different
Arc flashes
sides
fortunately occur
into from
quite
different
rarely,
directions
with
into
several
our
reasons
line.
contributing
And that
to
is an
their
important
infrequency
fact
of such incidents.
to define the
It
protection.
is nonetheless interesting
Another
to
type of
explore
network
how
is
arc
shown
flashes
here.
Safety
That is a
tested
typical
and the
network we
criteria
often
that
find
are
in
place for
distribution
such
systems.
assessments.
We have
Let's
one
now
bus
take
bar
a closer look at the processes
which gets
and
its
standards
energy from
that
in-feeding
govern these
transformers.
critical safety evaluations.
And then from the bus bar, we have so-called radial
In
feeders.
IEC Technical Report
That means
61641,
feeders with different
a total of
substations,
7 criteria
transformer
are
stations in
defined,
between,
leading
and
to
these
3
transformers
arc flashes,
transform then down
class
from
A, B,
the distribution
and C.
level, 20 kV,
Arc flash
down to
class
the low
A
voltage level,
covers
0.4
criteria
kV.
1 to 5.
And the important thing
and
is that
describes
these
essential protection for persons.
feeders are radial.
Here,
That means on the
arc
bottom
flash
here,
is
these
confined
connections
to the
are
area within
open.
the switchgear assembly.
That means we have a
Class
system
B is
with
described
no
by
meshes.
adding criterion
The system
6.
is
It
radial.
includes protection
And the
for
important
both
thing is, if you
personal
have a
and the
short
equipment.
circuit,
This
on one
guarantees
cable,
that the arc flash
for
is
instance, on
limited
this
to
cable,
defined areas of the assembly.
the short circuit current
And the
comes
highest arc flash
through
class
the transformer,
C,
the bus
in
bar,
addition to all
this
other
cable.
criteria,
It comes
it is
from
ensured
one side,
that
and
after
that
an
is
arc fault
a very
incident,
important
limited operation
feature
of the installation
when
is
we
possible.
design the protection system.
After removing
You
the
may
affected
ask the
part
question now, why
and
do we have
insulation
these
test.
strange connections here on the bottom? The reason
The
is the
active
following.
arc fault protection
Imagine
system
you have one
specifically
cable
developed for the
destroyed,
Civicon SA+,
for instance, by street
reduces
work.
the energy converted
In the
in
moment
an
the cable
internal
is
arc fault.
destroyed, you
As a
typically have a
result,
short
the
circuit,
effects
then
on
the
low voltage
protection
switchgear
will
assemblies are
disconnect this
additionally
cable
limited.
to remove the short circuit. But
As you can
then
see in the graphs,
the
there
bottom
are 2
transformer
effects
here
caused by an
is
arc
without
fault.
energy.
On the one hand, there's the high
What
pressure
you can
to
do
be faced.
then is you
On the other
can
hand, the arc
remove
fault
the
causes
destroyed
thermal
cable from the
effects.
network
In the
and
moment
then
of an arc fault, the
close
pressure rises
this
rapidly,
connection
like an
point here on the
explosion.
bottom
There's a
and
bang. As a
resupply
result,
this
the temperature
this
also
transformer
rises
here
sharply, and can reach
through
values
the
of
connection
several thousand
from the
Kelvin.
other side.
In addition, the high temperatures
That means
also burn or vaporize
normally you have
the
a radial
material surrounding
system,
the arc fault.
and we will see that's important
The
for
first
protection.
thing that burns
After
is the
protection
insulation
has
materials
worked, you
of
can
cables.
reconfigure the system. That will take
Next,
some time,
the copper, and
depending
after some
whether
200
you have remote
milliseconds,
control
the
or
steel
you have
of
to
the
drive
enclosure
there
can
to
also
reconnect
start
that.
to burn.
Important point
The
here
burning
is normal
materials
operation
may
is a
also
radial
produce
system.
toxic fumes
Similar
that should
things
not be inhaled under
Are
any
normally
circumstances.
visible in industrial
All in
systems,
all, this is a very
like shown
dangerous
here.
event,
These systems
which can
are
ultimately
often
lead to
also
serious,
radial.
possibly even
The
fatal
difference in
injuries
comparison
to people and,
to
of
the
course,
public
damage
distribution
of
systems
electrical
is that
facilities.
here the
We
distances are
see
normally
that there
shorter.
is an
So we
increased
are here
risk of
within
fire,
one plant,
beginning in the
chemical
range
plant
of
or
temperature
refinery.
rise from
Distances
approximately
are
100
shorter, and we
milliseconds.
normally have a lot
Due
of
to the
motors
exponential increase,
involved here.
the risk of damage
But also
is
there,
increasing
the
with
main question for
every
protection is,
millisecond.
do we have meshes
This reacts
or is
so
the system
quickly
a
that
radial
you
system?
get ahead of the
That
peak,
was
the pressure
the system
curve,
structure.
and then
The next point we have to
can
consider
thus also reduce this mechanical load
the
on
neutral
system.
earthing. And that is
And the question is now,
a
what
point
does
which
the
has
quenching
really big
device
impact
do?
on protection.
Well,
What
the
we
device
see here
causes an
is
all-pole short circuit
the
on the main bus
one
bar.
side of a
This short
transformer
circuit
in the system,
immediately removes
and this
the
transformer
energy
has
from
a
the arc
star
fault,
point.
and the arc
And now the
goes
big
out.
question is, what
The
do we
resulting
do
short
with
circuit is now
the
switched
several
off
star
by the
points
circuit
in the
breaker.
system?
The total
One thing
triggering
you
time
can do
from the
is
ignition of
so-called
the arc
solid
fault
earthing.
to its extinguishing
That
is
means you
usually
connect the star
significantly
points to
less
ground.
than
And that is what
5
you typically do
milliseconds.
in transmission systems.
If we
They are
remember
normally,
the pressure
the
curve,
star points are
we
grounded.
prevent the pressure wave
What
from
does that
becoming
mean?
so
That
strong in the
means
first place
if you
and
have a short
causing any
circuit, a
major
single
damage.
phase short circuit,
According to
if you have
IC technical
connection to
specification
ground,
63107,
which is the most probable type of
the
short
goals
circuit,
for the
then
integration and testing
you
of
have
the
really
active
a
arc
short
fault
circuit
protection system
loop
in the Silicon
here.
SA+
And that
are
means
as follows.
if you have this type
Ensuring
of
the
fault
correct
connection of
function
one
of
phase to
all
ground, you have
components
really
of
a
the
short
active
circuit
arc fault protection
with a big
system
short circuit
within
current.
the low voltage switchgear assembly.
If you want to reduce the short
Preventing
circuit
of
current,
fault tripping. For example,
can
due
add a
to
resistor
switching
here in the
arcs
star
from
point.
open circuit breakers.
if you again
Testing
imagine
the lower
this
and
connection to
maximum
ground
trip threshold.
and look at
Behavior
this
of the
short
system
circuit loop,
immediately
you
after
now
turning
have
on.
the resistor in this loop. And that
Now
means
let's take a look
by
at
this
how
resistor,
the
you
active
can limit
arc fault
the short
protection
circuit
works.
current. And for some
With an arc
cases,
fault,
especially
a
in
flash of light
distribution
is created,
systems,
which
this is
is
done.
detected by an optical
Because
sensor.
for the most probable type of
Simultaneously,
fault, you have
current
then a
transformers
reduced
detect
short
a
circuit
rapid surge
current,
in current.
which means
Both are relied
the
on
risk
the
of damage,
IACD
of injury of
detection
people, and so
device.
on is
When both
lower.
a flash of
But
light
that refers
and a current
only
surge
to phase to
happen at the
ground
same
fault.
time,
That does
it is
not influence
identified
the
as an
short
arc
circuit
fault
current in
incident.
case of a face-to-face
The
fault.
reduction of energy
And you can do
releases
even
in
more
an
things. You
internal
can
arc
put
fault
in
is achieved
a reactance
by
here.
triggering the arc quenching
And
device
with
AQD
such a
and the
reactance, you
feeding
can
circuit breaker.
bring down the
By
short circuit
activating
current,
the arc quenching device,
even
a
to
low
zero,
resistant current path,
or
a
you
short
can
circuit, is
leave this
established with
open.
less
That
than
means
5
in such a
milliseconds.
case, if you have
The
such an
fault
arrangement,
current flows
if
through
you have a
this
reactance
path,
here,
taking
or
the
if you
energy
have
from the arc.
the star point open,
This current path
you
is
have
maintained
pretty
until
low
the feeding circuit breaker trips
currents.
the
In
short
case
circuit
of
current.
a phase-to-ground fault, you can
Thus,
even continue
both
operation
personnel and equipment are
without risk of
successfully
damage.
protected.
So the
Through
earth
these
fault
features,
in this
the active
case is
arc
not really a
protection
short circuit
system
because there's only
provides
small
increased
current
safety
flowing.
for
That's the
both
good thing.
personnel
But on the
and
other
equipment.
hand, you must
Additionally,
find that fault. You
it
cannot.
offers
You
higher
can
plant
continue
availability
operation
due
for
to its continuous
seconds, even for
self-monitoring of
minutes,
systems condition.
but you must
Furthermore,
find
the
this
resettable
type of
system
fault.
reduces
That means
downtime.
in such a case,
And with that,
you must
we
have
come to the
additional
unique
protection
selling point of
functions
our active
to
arc
identify
protection
and
system.
to look to find out where
reusability
this
of
type
the
of
arc
fault
fault
is.
mitigation
So that is a
device
special
after an arc
area
fault
of protection.
Our
in
system
these networks.
operates without
That means if you
pyrotechnic
think about a
or other
protection
single-use
system for a
operating
network,
mechanism,
you must have a look
but
at this
rather on the
star
basis
point
of
treatment.
electromagnetic principles.
As I said,
with a
transmission
Thomson coil.
system, you are typically
Additionally,
with solid
both
earthing
the arc-quenching
in
device
distribution
and the
and
detection
industrial
unit
systems.
can be
You find a
tested
lot
up to
of
100 times.
other different
The
things.
active arc protection can be used for
was the
installations
neutral
with a
earthing.
voltage up to 690 volts.
The last
and a short
thing I'd
circuit
like to
current of
mention is here
100
what
kiloamps.
types of fault do we have to
If you
consider.
are interested in more detailed
On the
information
left-hand
on
side
arc
on the
fault
bottom,
protection
you
in
see the
Silicon
most
SA Plus,
frequent
we have
type of
also
fault,
prepared a
single-phase to
separate
ground
webinar
fault.
providing more insight.
This will occur
You will find it
typically,
in the info
for
box.
instance, if a lightning arc
For many
hits an
years,
overhead
switchboard
line,
were considered as
you have
simple
an
power
overvoltage
distribution,
there,
where
you
no
get a
intelligence
flash
was
over on
necessary
a
to
tower,
distribute
and then you have
electricity
a phase
from
to
A to
ground
B.
fault.
But as we have known
And you
for
can
some time,
see, you
this approach is no
can
longer
assume
valid.
that roughly in an
the past,
overhead
a
line
low-voltage
system,
switchboard
roughly
was considered just a
80
black
to
box.
90%
We
of
will now
all
show
short
you how
circuits are
intelligent this
single-phase to
supposed
ground
box made of
short
sheet metal
circuits.
has become.
Sometimes they
That's
evolve
impressive.
to
Can
a
I expect
face-to-face
to
to
talk with
ground
my switchboard
fault?
the way I
That
do with
means
my
if you have
smartphone
on
soon?
one tower
That will be
a
interesting.
lightning arc
However,
burning, a
we haven't
short
reached that
circuit
point
burning
yet.
on the tower,
But we do have
there's a lot
numerous
of
components that are
hot air
communicating,
flowing
speaking
around
in their
there,
own
and
language,
that
if you will.
sometimes starts affects
One
also
important
another
component
phase. Then you
for the
get this
communication capabilities
face-to-face
of
to
the
ground
feeders
error
is the
fault.
Simocode motor management system.
And
For
of
more than
course,
30
you
years,
can also
Simocode has
have
been
just
managing
a short
low-voltage
circuit
motors
between
with
two
constant
phases.
speed,
For
offering
instance, if the
comprehensive
conductors
protection,
of
monitoring, and control
an overhead
functions.
line start some
It determines
oscillations.
detailed
And
operational
of course,
data,
there is also a
service,
risk of a
and
three-phase
diagnostic
short
data.
circuit. That
Also, to
is
switch
not
off
very
motors
often.
safely.
A typical
All
thing,
based
for
on
instance,
monitoring
would
current
be
and
in a
voltage of the
distribution
connected
system.
motor.
You have roadworks there, people starting,
The basis of communication
opening the
for
street,
Simocode
didn't
family
look at the cable
is
plans
formed by
before
various standardized
excavator
communication
hits the
protocols,
cable,
such as
and
Profibus,
either you
Profinet,
get an interruption or you
Modbus
get a
RTU
short
or
circuit
TCP,
or both.
Ethernet IP,
That's
or
one reason
OPC-UA,
why you have three-phase short
which
circuits.
facilitate
Another
communication
reason
with
can
various
be
higher-level
you
systems
did maintenance on
or
a
even
line.
cloud applications.
If you do maintenance on a line,
Additionally,
you
circuit
have
breakers,
to ground
soft
the line.
starters,
That
frequency
means you have to
converters,
connect
and several
all the
other
three phases
devices
together to
also offer
ground.
communication
Then you can work
capabilities
on the line.
and provide a large amount of
After you
operational
have finished
and status data.
your work, you want to reconnect the
Ideal
line,
for
and
getting
if you then
started
forget
for
that the
smaller
grounding
functions,
is still there and
Simocode
energize the
Control S is the
line,
right choice.
you have a three-phase
This
short
smart
circuit and the
compact
protection
system
has to trip.
makes it easy to get
So
started
that are
with motor
the
management,
types of short
consisting of a
circuit.
basic unit,
On the right-hand
current
side,
detection
you
module,
also see
and an optional
other types of
expansion module. It offers
faults like
flexible and
interruptions.
cost-optimized base
They
solution
are not
with
so
connectivity
critical
for
normally.
Profibus.
The three-phase
For additional
interruption means
functionality, the use of
we have no
Simocode Pro
longer
V is
transport of
recommended.
energy. The other side
This
is
package
maybe
includes
without
simple
voltage,
control,
but it's
monitoring,
not
and protection functions
such a critical
on the
thing that
basic
something
unit,
explodes.
as well as modules
But
for temperature.
if you,
ground
for
fault,
instance, supply
and
a
additional
big motor
IOs,
in a
etc.
chemical plant, for instance,
All in a
and
compact
you have a
design.
single-phase interruption,
Apart from only
the
current
motor
measuring,
doesn't like that,
it also
or a generator,
offers voltage
because
detection.
these
And up to
motors and
5 expansion
generators
modules
need
can be connected.
a three-phase
so you benefit from a
system
range of further highlights
to have a
such
constant
as
torque,
voltage and active
and
power
if one
detection,
phase is missing,
fail-safe shutdown,
you
and
can
various
destroy
communication
the
protocols
devices. So
like
for that
Profinet,
reason, also
OPC-UA,
these
Modbus,
types of
or
faults
Ethernet IP.
have
So far
sometimes
for
to
the
be
established
connected.
portfolio. In addition to that, we
disconnected.
also introduce a new generation.
So
in
we come to
Simocode
the end
S8,
of this
optimized
chapter. We
further
looked at the
for
different
use
aspects
in MCCs especially.
which have of the network,
Simocode
which have to be
MCP,
considered
that's the name
to
of the new product
bring
line,
together
comes with
a
additional
protection
inputs
scheme.
and outputs.
And in the next
that will serve
chapter, we
most
will look
applications
at
directly.
the protection principles
Fail-safe
which
operation
are
according to
available to
ZIL 1
detect short
is
circuits.
integrated, just as improved monitoring and protection functions. Simocode MCP comes with a new form factor that enables a more space-saving design of the withdrawable unit. It is possible to
This
mount the device together
Diagram
with the operator
between the
panel.
maximum load current and the
Moreover,
minimum
a
short
new
circuit
voltage and current
current.
sensing module based
Then
on Rogowski
we
coils
can make a
can be built into the
setting
compact
somewhere
system
in
of
between and
full-size
can say,
withdrawable
okay,
units.
in this
This
gap,
can replace the
I define a
RINCORE-based
limit,
module that can take up
and as
considerable
long as
space,
the current
especially
is
for higher
below this
radios.
limit, I
This
consider
can reduce
this
the
as
size
normal
of the
operation,
full-size modules
and
as
as
much
soon
as
as the current is
25%.
above that limit,
The new
I
device
consider
also comes
that
with
as a
Ethernet
short
communication
circuit and
protocols,
will react on
Profinet,
that.
Modbus TCP, Ethernet
Important
IP,
thing in this
and
context
OPC UA.
is
However,
what is
on the
the
switchboard
maximum
level,
load
single pair
current?
Ethernet is
And that
used
is in many
as a
cases
connection
not so
physics.
obvious.
So integration into the
Imagine you
switchboard becomes
are
easier.
behind the
as a
transformer,
simple
then you
twisted
can
pair
say,
cable
okay,
can
the
be used
maximum
and
load
no
current
RJ5
is
connectors are
the nominal
necessary.
current of the transformer.
Single pair Ethernet switches will connect
Is that-
to the
is that
Simocode
okay?
device
Imagine you
and
can
provide
overload a
classical
transformer.
RJ45 connection
means you can
to any
have
upstream
cases
system.
where you have a short
All of
overload,
this contributes
and
to
if you
making
set
our
your
Silicon
limit
SA Plus
directly to the
a smart
rated current
and
of a
intelligent
transformer,
switchgear.
as soon as you
Wherever
have a slight
motors are keeping
overload,
processes running in the process
our
industry,
protection will
Simocode
see,
is
oh,
on site.
it looks like a short circuit and will trip.
And the expectations
And
in the
that's,
market are
that's not
increasing.
good. That means you must make
Solutions
up your
for better
mind
transparency of measurement
what
data,
is really
reliable
the
monitoring of status
maximum
information, and
current
fault
you will
currents,
see
more flexible
without a short
applications,
circuit. And that
space
is often not
constraints,
that easy.
and system redundant.
Remember, for
system
instance,
redundancy are sought
one
after.
critical
The
situation.
use of Simocode devices in the Silicon SA Plus
You have an
allows
overcurrent
for the creation
protection,
of
and
powerful
behind this
and at the same
protection,
time,
or this
space-saving,
protection looks
communication-capable
into
motor feeders.
a distribution system which
And
supplies
thanks to the
a number of
initialization
streets in
module,
your
so
city.
for Simocode,
And
switchgear
you have
and motor
this
management
thing out of
systems
operation
are brought
for
even
maintenance
closer
or
together.
after a blackout or
Use and
whatever,
withdrawable
and
unit
you are in a
technology
city
in
with
motor
very
control
hot
centers.
temperatures. That means you have a lot of
Initialization
aircon.
module is integrated into
And your
the switchgear.
maintenance or repair
This
work
ensures that
takes
feeder
2, 3,
specific
4 hours,
parameters
sun is
and
shining,
addresses data
all the
are
buildings
assigned
heat
to
up,
that feeder's
and
compartment.
now you
When
reconnect power.
replacing
You
a
are happy,
withdrawable
your
unit,
repair
the new
work is
unit
done,
automatically
you reconnect
configures
power,
itself from the initialization module
and
to the
then
switchboard.
at the moment you reconnect power,
And
all
with
the air
minimal
cons
interruption, the
start
motor
running
is
at the
up
same
and running
time,
again.
and you get
Protection
really
settings
a high
and other
current in the
parameters
beginning,
are restored,
which slows
and
then down a
communication
bit.
is re-established.
But if now your setting
This
is
takes
too
us
low,
to Simaris
with
Control,
this high current,
a
you come above
PC-based
your setting,
HMI,
and you will trip
human-machine
again.
interface
That means you won't
designed
get
to
that system
visualize
into
customer
operation again.
installations
And
with
that
an
means if you
intuitive
think about
user
the maximum
interface.
load current,
But it is
you must
more
take
than just visualization.
into account such
Device data from the
considerations and
previously
must
mentioned
add
components is
a certain
collected and
security
recorded
margin
using the
there
available
that you don't
communication
get
protocols
this
such as
problem.
Profinet,
The other
OPC
thing you
UA,
also have to take
or
into
Modbus.
account there is you have to
Simaris
look
Control
into the future,
operates
because
completely
you calculate
independent
your
of a process
setting
control system.
when you install
Device
the device,
communication is established
but you don't
asynchronously
want
or
to
via parallel
reconsider the
protocols.
setting every month.
This ensures
That
that
means
the
you must
primary
have a setting
communication,
which is also
such as with
valid
the process control
After
system,
some years,
is not
when
interfered
maybe
with.
the system has
Moreover,
been extended
very
later
little,
on.
very little additional wiring effort is
Also,
required.
that means
Simaris Control
we have
is
to look
simply
a little
integrated
bit in
into
the
the
future.
existing
But
network
important
as an
thing here
additional
is
client.
what you can see from this
Controlling
diagram.
feeders is also possible.
You can only
Providing
catch
this is
faults,
allowed
you can only
in
detect
device
faults
parameters
where the current
and for the
of
user
the
of the
fault
Simaris Control.
is higher than this
All the
maximum
collected
load
data
current
are centrally
plus a
visualized
certain
in
security
Simaris
margin.
Control. It is important to
With
us
that, you
to
cannot
create an
detect faults
intuitive
with a very
visualization
low
system.
current.
Therefore,
That's
the
not possible
virtualized
with this
representation mirrors
principle.
the physical installation.
That means
Now let me show you what this
if
looks
that
like
can be
with some
applied,
sample
we
views.
can detect
The home
fault.
screen
But
provides an
remember,
overview of
detection
all
of
connected
fault is
assets.
one story.
To navigate to the
We
front
also
of an
have to be
asset,
selective.
click or tap on the
Detection of
desired
faults
asset's
means
icon.
the current is that high,
The front
there
view
must be a short
corresponds to the
circuit,
physical asset.
but we still
Here,
do not yet
the
have
current
the
switch
decision is the
positions,
short circuit on our
feeder
own
status,
line or
and
is it on the
alarms are
next
displayed.
line. That means the
Tap
topic
on a
of
feeder to
selectivity
open a detailed window.
is not included here. We will see later on in the
Please
second part
visualize all the
of
data
this
collected
webinar
from
that
the
we
feeder.
need some time
Feeders can
delays
also be
to
controlled
get
from here.
selectivity. But
It is
basically,
important that
this
different
principle
feeders
is
and
widely
components
applied.
are
You have it
displayed
in
with a
fuses,
uniform look and feel.
and
There
here
are
in
no
our field, you
device-specific
have it in
interfaces, which
protection
makes
relays,
operation
overcurrent
easier.
protection, and There we
Integrated
have
document
to
management
distinguish
is
between
available
two
for each
different
field.
types, inverse time
circuit
overcurrent
diagrams,
protection and definite
bill of
time overcurrent
material,
protection.
and device
We will look
descriptions or
now a
manuals
little
are
bit
supplied
into
as a standard.
these different types.
The user also has
how
the
they
option
work.
of updating the circuit diagrams via an import.
So how does
or
an
adding their
overcurrent
own
protection
documents
look like?
And assigning them to a
Let us
feeder.
start with the three phases of our protected line.
One of the
or
core
cable.
features of
They are
Smart
shown
Control
here.
is integrated alarm management.
And now we measure the current,
Alarm events are
only the
monitored
current,
throughout the
by
entire system
using this
hierarchy
red
from the
current
detailed fault
transformer,
or
and we
warning of a
connect
device
this
via
current
the single
transformer to
section
our
view
protection
to the home
relay.
panel.
I draw
This allows
here
the user
parts
to
of a
quickly
protection
identify
device.
where a fault
You
has
see
occurred
here an
and
input
initiate
transformer.
countermeasures using the detailed
That's a
fault
measuring
description.
input, the connection point
All
where
existing
the relay
alarms and
measures
warnings are also
the current
collected
which comes
and
from our
archived
current
in a central
transformers.
alarm list.
Then we have a
In
shunt
addition
A
to
to
the
D conversion,
visualization
some
function of
algorithms.
the current
We
measured
calculate
values,
the
we are
current,
constantly working on
and
evaluating
then
data
somewhere in the digital
and making
system
the
we have
results
the
of
amount of current
evaluation
we see.
available to the user.
And with this
The
current
goal
we
is to
go
ensure
into
condition-based
this
maintenance, or even
blue
better, predictive
block.
maintenance with the help of continuous data analysis.
that gives us a
To achieve
signal
this, operational
if the
data
current
of
is
components like
above our
contactors,
threshold
circuit
limit
breakers is
we
used
just
and
discussed in the
analyzed.
previous slide.
Temperatures are
And
evaluated
it also takes a
device-specific
time
condition
delay.
information
That means the behavior of the
circuit
relay
breakers,
is mainly
3VA,
affected by
3WA,
this
3VA
blue
is visualized
block.
in the health mode.
And in this block,
Starting
the
from
user has to
feeder-related
do
health
some
indices,
settings
panel
to
and,
adapt that
plant-related
to
health
his
status
system.
are also created.
If the block issues a
All
signal,
information is consolidated
goes
in an analysis
to the
panel.
circuit breaker and
This
will trip.
visualizes the overall
this shows
health
just
index
one
of a
phase.
panel.
We
throughout
always have
a level indicator.
three-phase system. That
Another
means we
feature
must
supporting
multiply
maintenance
that
is the
by 3.
digitalization of inspection protocols.
And we do
Here the user has the option
here
to
on the right-hand
systematically
side an
work
OR
through the
connection.
digitized
That
inspection
means
protocol.
if we see a fault
defects are
conditions
observed,
in
this
at
will
least
result
one
in
of the three
maintenance tasks.
phases, we will
These
issue
can either be
a trip command
completed
so
or
that we
lead to
can
repair tasks
detect
if
all
maintenance
types of
is not
fault.
possible. The
Now
maintenance
let's
tasks
look a little
are
bit
also reflected
more
in
into
the analysis
these
panel.
blue boxes.
If one or
What
more
is
maintenance
inside
tasks
there?
are pending,
And that
the
is
overall
shown on the next
display
slide.
of
As
the
I
system
already
turns
mentioned,
red.
we have two
By tapping on
types of
total,
overcurrent
the
protection,
maintenance tasks
and
are displayed.
they can be distinguished by
Simaris
looking
Control not
into
only
these
supports
boxes.
low voltage switchboards like
That
the
means
Supercom
these
SA Plus. We have
boxes
also the
have
option to
a
visualize
different
other systems of a
characteristic.
substation.
That means
These
a delay
include
time
various medium voltage
depending
systems
on the current
from the
they
Siemens
detect.
portfolio.
And this characteristic is
Transformers, as
normally
well as
plotted in
peripheral
such a
systems such as
diagram
HVAC or
that you
smoke
see
and smoke
here
detection.
on the right side.
All, of course, in the same
The horizontal
intuitive
axis is
look
the
and feel.
current
Today,
measure,
we have shown
and the
that
vertical
the Silicon
axis
SA
is
Plus
the delay
is not
time.
just a black box.
And what you see
distributing
here is a
power from
certain
point
range
A
of
to
current
point B.
from 0
The Silicon SA Plus is your
to
safe,
the setting
flexible,
value. This
and
is the setting
intelligent
value.
partner for
This
all
is the
your low
load
voltage
area.
distribution needs.
You see, that would be the nominal
But
current.
also as a motor
maybe of
control
our
center, the
transformer or
Silicon SA
whatever.
Plus
We have
stands
a
out
certain
as a
security
system
margin.
for your
And
critical
as
power.
long as the currents
Especially when downtime
are
leads to high
somehow
costs,
in this
such as in the process
load
industry,
area,
smart and reliable
trip time
systems
is infinite.
are
That means
the
we
best
have no
solution.
trip.
Both the
As
modular
soon
withdrawable design and
as
the
we
active
are above
output
the
protection,
setting limit,
as well as the communication capables
then
and data analysis
we
of
start
Simaris
our
Control
timer,
can be a
and then
decisive factor
we will issue
in
a
minimizing
trip
or even
if this
avoiding
condition
downtime costs.
remains there for a given
We
time.
have come to the end
That
of our
means
presentation and would
the
like
time
to have a
which
look
is
at
given
some
by the
questions
user.
now.
That means this characteristic has basically two setting values.
Thank you for your
One is
presentation,
the current
dear
setting,
Martin, dear Andreas.
and one is the timer
The-
setting.
We have some questions.
The current
and the
setting is
first question
derived
in
from
what
the
way-
considerations I
ways
did
does the
on the
integration of
previous
Silicon
slide.
technology enhance the efficiency
Above
and reliability
maximum
of the
load
power
current
supply
plus a
during the
certain
critical phase
security
of battery
margin.
manufacturing?
The
such as
timer
material
setting
preparation, cell
comes
assembly,
from the
formation and
selectivity
aging, and final assembly and
considerations we
testing.
will discuss later on. This
Okay,
type of protection with this
Civicon SA Plus
Defined
provides a high
time
system
as soon as we
reliability
are above a limit
and
is
provides
called
a
definite time.
scalable framework for future upgrades.
Another
So it helps
alternative
you to mitigate
for
the
this
risks
block is
associated
the
with power
so-called
disruptions.
inverse time
It
over current
helps you
protection.
optimize the energy
There you
usage
have,
and
first of all, a
improve
similar
safety
situation.
protocols
That means
throughout
as
all
long
stages
as
of
you
the,
are in the
battery
load
manufacturing,
current area,
contributing to
you have no
decreased
trip.
carbon
Trip time
footprints
is
throughout
infinite.
initiatives like
As soon
the
as you are
environmental
above
product declarations,
a
the
set
EPDs,
value, it means,
for
yes,
the overall system,
I detect
including
a short
the
circuit,
devices
but
that are
then
involved.
the trip time
Yes,
depends
that's it.
on the amount
Okay.
of current
The
we
next
detect.
question goes like,
That
what are
means
the
if
primary
we are
advantages of
slightly
using
above
Civicon
our
technology in
limit,
battery manufacturing facilities,
we trip with a
especially
longer
in terms
delay
of
time.
efficiency and safety?
If we have very high current, we
I think
trip with a
first
shorter
when we
delay
talk about
time.
safety,
That's a typical
yeah, we're following
characteristic
the
you
IEC
may
standards.
know
There's,
from fuses.
The general facts.
This is called
like we
inverse
said,
time characteristic,
that, we
and
have yeah, the
we will
on-fault
show in
protection,
a separate
passive
chapter
way, in an active
how
way,
you can
and,
get
yeah,
selectivity
efficiency.
by applying these concepts. So
Yeah,
either using definite time or
For
inverse
instance,
time.
if you use CMOS
characteristics.
control,
That was the
CMOS
overcurrent
control
protection.
system.
So remember,
you
second
get,
principle,
all the data from the
distance protection based on
devices
impedance.
or,
How does that
energy
work?
consumptions, and
This
get the
picture
transparency,
shows
and that helps you
just an extract
to,
from a meshed system.
improve your efficiency.
And
in
of
the
course, in a
overall
meshed
process.
system, on
Okay.
beginning
Next question.
and end of
What are
every
the key
line, you have a
safety
protection relay
protocols
with a,
that should be followed
with a
when
circuit
installing and
breaker.
maintaining
What I
electrical
show
distribution
here is
systems
only one
for battery plants?
of these
Is,
protection
for
relays to
example, fire
explain the
safety and
principle.
arc.
This protection relays measures voltage
First
and
of all,
current and
the switchboard
calculates the
itself
impedance.
needs to be safe.
And
we
now
ensure that by,
it compares the measured
implementing all the
impedance
requirements
with the
from
impedance of the
from
line.
IEC standards.
And based
when
on
it
this
comes to
comparison, it can
installing,
decide,
and maintaining the
like in the upper
system,
part,
then yeah,
if
you
the
need to
fault
follow
is the short circuit is
installation
on the
manuals,
line,
basically.
the measured
which
impedance
are
from the
provided
relay
from
to
us.
the fault
Of course,
is smaller
And,
than the
yeah,
impedance
to,
of the line.
to set up the design.
And if
safely.
you look at the lower part,
And of course,
where the
you need
short
to
circuit is on the
maintain,
next line,
the system.
it
so you need
measures
to do
a larger
the
impedance, an
regular
impedance which
inspection
is
checks,
higher than the
that
impedance
are
of the
also set
line.
out in the,
Then it says, okay,
operating
I see a
manuals,
short circuit
and then
somewhere,
we'll have a,
but it's not on my
a safe
line.
system
That
over a
means
very
based on this comparison, measured impedance against
question,
impedance
how does,
of the line, we can get a decision
Design of the
fault on the
switchboard
line
help
or
the feature
fault
scalability
somewhere
and
else.
upgrades in the battery manufacturing facility.
That means with this, we can get selectivity
the Civicon SA Plus is a
without
modular
any
system.
delay times.
So,
and that is
you can
the
always
advantage of distance protection.
change it. You can
I already mentioned
extend
it's
it.
called
So
distance
if the
protection,
requirements are
although
changing in the
it is
future, you
based
can
on
add
impedance measurement.
additional sections. You can add withdrawable
That means
modules.
we also have some
Or you can
this blue
rearrange
block in
if
our
your,
device.
Production layout has changed, and you want to adapt to that.
But
And
the content is a bit different.
the
We
system
need as input
also
quantity
is,
the voltage and the
maintained by
current
us
so
for
that
a
we
very
can calculate
long
the
time also
impedance.
in the future. So
You
that
may know
we can ensure or
the
provide
impedance are treated
peace of
as
mind that,
complex values.
also
Unfortunately,
in many years
that
from now,
means
we
we
will be
have
able
a
to,
resistive part,
help you with upgrades
which is
or
drawn
modifications.
in the horizontal
Okay.
axis.
Next question.
And we have the
How does
so-called
Civicon
reactive
technology
part,
contribute
which
to
is
reducing
drawn
the
in the
overall
vertical
carbon footprint
axis.
in battery manufacturing?
That means
For example, EPD for
if
the
we do
devices
one
or the
measurement,
switchboard, yeah.
we get one measured
this is
point in
just
this
one step,
so-called complex
to,
impedance plane.
Providing sustainability.
And to make the
you need to
decision,
get,
is
you
it
need to
on
know
the
what's
line
in,
or not?
and therefore
we define
the EPD will
an
help you,
area in the impedance
environmental
plane,
product declaration,
and as soon
because it
as we
lists
measure
you,
an operating
what
point
materials are used
inside
and from
this
what
green
sources they
area,
are, so that helps
we
you in
issue
your
a
planning
trip
stage
signal.
to know what
That
the
is the
resources
principle
are
in distance protection.
that will go into the switchboard.
Third criterion, was the differential protection.
Secondly, we can also
What is the idea there? Remember, you have
design
a simple line. I indicate here the three phases. I first of all focus just on one phase. You measure the current at both ends of the line. In this case, indicated as I1 and I2. Normally, current flowing into the line is calculated as positive.
And one last question
That means
is,
if we
like,
have
how do you
in
manage
this
system
picture
reliability
here
in
a
the
current
context of
flow
bus-bar
from
tracking system
left to
with
right,
installed switchgear
let's
for
assume
electrical
100
distribution
amps.
systems, like
I1 would be
connection.
100 amps and I2 would be minus 100 amps because it flows against the indicated direction. That means in normal operating state, the sum of these two currents is
they
zero.
are very, very close to each other.
If we now have a short
we
circuit
have also the type tested
on this
combinations,
phase,
and,
that means a connection
is-
from the
it is
phase
like
to
it is
ground
said, one
or
family,
from
so,
this phase to another phase. It disturbs
for
our
each other,
equation.
to say it in that way.
And that means the sum of the two current is no longer equal to zero because part of the current flows another way. That means we can use the sum
it's closely integrated
of the
with
measured
Christopher Perrin, so
currents
we
as a good
do heat-wise
indication.
tests, we do short circuit
Is
tests,
there a short circuit
and
on the
provide
device
that
or
as a
not?
system solution.
And that is the
so that
differential
is
criterion.
something
In
you
this
can't do
case,
if you
I
have
introduced
cables
it just for
also
a
with
single line with
third-party,
two measurements.
products.
You can also use
it's not
it
that
for
easy,
a
but here
multi-terminal
we
line
all have it in one hand and can
because the
provide that
principle remains
additional,
the same.
safety.
And that is
level of safety.
indicated here. That means you draw a circle around the protected zone.
So,
The
dear
protected
attendees,
zone can be a
thank you for
line, a
your thoughtful
transformer,
questions,
a
and to
bus
Martin
bar.
and Andreas for your
You
comprehensive
measure all
responses.
the currents
Any unanswered questions from the Q&A
and
will
you
be
sum
followed up
up
by email.
the
If you
currents.
have additional questions later, please don't
Do
hesitate
that
to contact us.
individually
You'll find the Silvercone
for
S8 Plus brochure and the
all
webinar
three
presentation
phases.
available for download in the
And
upper
in
right-hand
normal
corner.
operation,
Please
this
note,
sum
if you're in
should
a
be
full screen
zero.
mode and can't see the download
And
area,
if this
you might
sum
need to
of the
press
three
the
currents,
escape
we call this
the key
sum
to
the
access it.
differential current,
Access the recording is
is
automatically available
unequal
to
to
all of you
zero.
directly after the
Then
session
it is
with
an
the same link you
indication
got
that there
for
is a fault
the
on the
live
protected
webinar.
line.
Thank you very much for your active participation. It was a pleasure for me
You
to
may
guide
realize
you through
in
the
this
session,
context,
and we are looking forward to
just
seeing you
comparing
at
a
our future
measured
webinars.
current with
Thank you
zero
once again for joining us, and have a great
and
day.
saying, okay, as soon as it is unequal to zero, the SB fault is not a good idea. Of course, in real life, we must always compare it with a certain tolerance, with a certain threshold value. That means finally, the differential criterion is we calculate the differential current and compare it with a certain threshold. And that is a little bit the tricky thing in differential protection, to define the correct threshold values. But the principle is a very